Disclaimer: the following video can contain spoilers. A group of war photojournalists are on a mission to interview the president during a civil war. I'm not gonna lie, I thought this movie was going to be different, but I still kinda liked it. I did need to rewatch this movie to weigh in my thoughts clearer because I had thought the movie was going to be different. What I did like about the movie was how visually we understand the feeling of war and hardships. With an amazing sound design, it really felt like every gunshot, every impact, and every sound made a difference. Not only did it feel like I was there, but it created an atmosphere that captivated not only what this movie is about, but the emotional aspect to it, which was great.
When you lose your shit, or you get blown up, or shot.
Would you photograph that moment if I got shot?
What do you think?
The movie opens up with the president preparing his delivery for his upcoming speech. With various clips of riots and rebellion intertwined, the camera's angle of the president is jarring and not composed right, much like the president's current mental state and the country's. We then cut to the broadcast of the speech. Having now composed himself, he is now dead center of the frame. For our protagonist's introduction, she enters the frame, sits on the bed, and stares at the president through the TV screen. She lifts her camera and takes a picture of the president, not really bothered by a nearby explosion from afar. From this moment, we get two things from the protagonist. She wants to capture the president, although I'm not gonna lie, at first I thought she wanted to kill him using this scope of the camera to simulate a scope of a gun. And she isn't fazed by the current situation. Cut to the protests, or riot. Lee notices a young girl in the crowd. After getting hit, she escorts her away from the crowd when pictures tell 1,000 words, which was spoken through this scene after the explosion. No audio, just pictures. So far, so good. I'm captivated by the ongoing riots and the state the United States seem to be in. I want to learn more. But what I'm more captivated by is the angle the movie went with. We've seen war movies through the eyes of soldiers. So when the P.O.V is shifted onto these photojournalists, I am intrigued. I want to know more about them, their job, and their personal emotions when it comes to these type of events. Sadly, we don't really go much in depth of how and why the world is in its current state, which was a real bummer for me, but because of how well we got to see these photojournalists in the movie, I can let that slide. However, I still feel that the relationship between Lee and Jaime could have been written better. Mainly because I feel that we didn't delve deeper inside of Lee's mind. After all those flashing images and the level of distress she seems to be in, I did feel a bit disappointed when it didn't show how it affects Lee at her job, personal life, or her relationship with Jaime. Don't get me wrong, I still understood her character interactions. I just wished it could have tied with the story a bit more, or at least visually. Because I was still unsure whether or not she loves her job, despite the obvious torment and mental scarring it causes. I'm also not sure if she's trying to help Jaime for Jaime or for herself. Perhaps both. I was still also unsure why Jaime wants to be a photojournalist to begin with, or why she is inclined to get the best picture, disobeying part of what she's told, in which only gets herself in some trouble. Maybe I have missed it, so let me know in the comments down below. I would appreciate it. From the first sets of images we see during this scene, it kind of ends there. Yeah, there's some dialogue here and there that brings it back up, but it doesn't play much part in Lee's character in the end. Although it was sufficient to understand her character moving forward, I would have liked more scenes that create this fear and torment with herself that she fears the worst for Jaime. Or maybe she enjoys her job too much that she's afraid that Jaime would too, which would only cause her death. Especially because scenes involving these two characters later on, it could have hit harder if we were given more to build up that relationship and see its struggles. Where in the end, their relationship felt more like a bond than a hurdle.
You tell me the story of how you became a photojournalist.
You don't know? Thought I was one of your heroes.
To really understand those mental scarring images Lee had to capture, knowing that she can't interfere, can weigh you down heavily. For her to really be put in dangerous situations, her own mind is something that resonates with me even after the movie. All that suffering these journalists have to go through can weigh you down severely. And I know it sounds weird of me to say it, but I wanted to see how far the movie pushes this notion. Again, what we got in the movie was sufficient, but I feel could have hit harder. Not only the suffering aspect in Lee's mind, but the relationship between Lee and Jaime. Given that the whole premise is about photography through the eyes and, well, lenses of these war photojournalists, I really enjoyed the composition. It was also a nice spin to things, having it be centered around these photojournalists instead of soldiers, a president, or a very heavily plot-armored protagonist. Not to mention the contrast between Lee's pictures and Jaime's black and white pictures, because the world isn't just black and white, which I found the movie did a clever job in. Or perhaps it's just me reading too far into it. When we get our first real-world dilemma, Jaime is so shaken up by reality and the state of these two men that she completely forgets her purpose. Lee takes charge of the situation, which makes Jaime contemplate with herself, asking herself these questions Lee says not to do. That this is just the tip of the iceberg and part of the job. How Lee handles this situation is also a good indicator of not only her character, but what would inevitably be the start of her character arc in terms of her relationship with Jaime, and how she'll end up taking all these emotions she'd been bottling up for so long.
Once you start asking yourself those questions, you can't stop. So we don't ask. We record so other people ask. You want to be a journalist? That's the job.
Hey, Lee.
What?
It would have also been great to understand why Jaime wants to be a photojournalist as well. She just says she has a fascination for it and kind of nothing else. This aspect would have also played a major part of it because maybe she entered it for the wrong reasons, only finding out the reason because of Lee. Perhaps Lee is also in a dilemma. With the world seeming to go under, Lee feels there's no one with morals, no one with a good heart anymore, only for Jaime to change that and find solace in that, and put her mind at rest for the first time since the start of the Civil War. What I'm trying to say is that there doesn't feel like there's much emotional connection between these two characters and the events happening to really give us much impact. Jaime just happens to get hit in the head, which sparks a conversation and ultimately an adventure together. Since Jaime wants to be a photojournalist and Lee understands the hardships, given that she's still dealing with hers, she is enraged when Jaime tags along. I feel like there should be a bit more emotional substance than that links these two women together, apart from the Civil War. Like I mentioned before, perhaps Jaime got into journalism for the wrong reasons, which somehow counters Lee's perspective in things, not only fueling up both her anguish and trauma, but also helping Lee realize her flaws altogether. This next scene is where the movie succeeded, in what it set out to do. It's the first time we see the interactions between the press and war, how these characters navigate through these difficult times. It's, well, the promise of the premise. With no music, it manages to create tension and suspense, mainly through visuals, audio, sound design, and its situation. It continues with this level of tension throughout the journey until the battle for the president. And while I was at the edge of my seat, I was also captivated by the imagery, sound, and story as it progressed. I really felt that they did a very good job in everything. When it comes to this level of tension, this level of drama, and this level of chaos. Overall, Civil War is a war movie with the perspective of these war photojournalists. It has a nice story with high levels of tension that I quite enjoyed. Although I feel like there should have been a deeper link connection between these two women, what we saw was enough to keep us invested, care for them, and enjoy the movie. The biggest aspect of the movie was its sound design and direction, which was done pretty great. It's definitely one of those movies that not everyone will enjoy because of the way it was executed. And while there are things I felt the movie could have done better in, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I thought it was great. But anyways, those are just my thoughts. Did you enjoy the movie? Let me know what you thought about it down below, and I'll see you in the next review. Until then, God bless.